Hey guys, so this is the first part of my video series on how to make weapons. So I've been getting a lot of feedback. A lot of people are still confused around axes, making swords and etc. I will be trying to go over everything in good detail. Try to go slowly, and I've adjusted the screen so everyone can see it properly. So the first weapon I will be making is an axe. So, in the axe, I will be going on to Chrome or whatever browser you use. Go to Sketchfab, find a weapon you like. For instance, right now I will use this one. So, I actually like that one better. So, I will not be releasing these videos. I won't be releasing these mods, sorry. I will be simply releasing the videos on how to do them. So I like this axe. So the best way to do it is to download it. It will download into a zip file which you can open with WinRAR 7 Zipper Explorer. So once you do that, then I recommend you create a folder. So for instance, mine is the Blade and Sorcery Weapons. I will create a new folder called, I don't know, Video Axe. I will open the zipper and I will move the items in there. Okay, so now I have the weapons in there. I open my Unity, which is version 1.8 of the SDK that you will find in modding how to. If you can't find it, it's where Cosby released it. So it's right here. So now that that's done, you go into assets. I recommend you create a weapons folder if you haven't already. In the weapons folder, you want to create another folder called, I'll just call it Video Axe. I will open it up. I will go to the where I put the weapon. I extract my model if it requires me to. So now I have the DAE file. I drag that under here. Now some extensions like GLTF and a few others are not supported by Unity. If you still want to use them though, you can download Blender and have a extension that will allow you to convert it. Okay, so now I'll go back to my textures. You see there are 3 textures here. Perfect. So I'll grab that one, and that one. These are the albedos. I don't usually mess with the rest apart from the normal textures. However, you can put these how you please. For instance, the metallic goes into the metallic part of the shader, etc. So now I'll move these down. Okay, so I will now get the model I have here and I will drag it up to the side. Double click it to center it. Now you have your weapon. Now just for clarity purposes, I'm going to be copying the directional light to make it so it's visible on both sides. So let me do that quickly. Okay, so next thing you have to do is you have to unpack the prefab by right clicking it. Now you have your models. So the first thing you want to do is you want to apply textures because right now it's just bland and plain. So I have 3 models here. So this one's obviously for the wood, which is the middle part, it looks like. So to do this, you drag it onto the model. There we go. Now, if you want to apply the normal and other textures, you click the down part of the shader and you have all these options. So I move the normal to the normal map and click fix now. So now you can see that has extra detailing. I'm going to add another directional light. Okay, so now it has extra detailing. Now, say I wanted to make the detailing a little bit better. What I will do is I can have this number here next to the normal map, and I can increase it to give it that extra detail. So for instance, that's a pretty good detail right there. Okay, now I get this part. Looks like it's part of the other texture here. Yep, looks like it. I do exactly the same. Drag the normal file onto that file. Fix now. And then I will increase the normal map to make it look even more detailed. Excellent. Then finally I do it with the blade. So move it on. Normal map. Fix now. Pull it to, let's see, 6. Perfect. So the normal map increase can sometimes mess up the textures of the weapon. Sometimes. So it's always better to go for a smaller number, but it looks here that it's fine. Okay, so now the model is done. Now what I recommend you do is you rename it to models, and you want to right click the box, create empty, rename it to the name of your weapon. Now select the models and drag it down into the video axe. Now I don't know how big this weapon is, so I will go into my assets folder, and with the SDK you should get a folder called prefabs. These contain 3 example weapons that you can compare the size of your weapon with. So I will get my example dagger, and let's see how big that is. I will rotate it as well. So as you can see, the axe is pretty large. So the best way to do this is not to resize the video axe, but to resize the models to fit it properly. Now, since this weapon is pretty small, I will be decreasing it not by that much. Probably 0.5, half it. Perfect. So that's that now. I always recommend that your position on your weapon is always 0. Okay, so now you can get rid of the example dagger. So now you want to add the item definition to the video axe area. So you want to type in item definition. It will automatically give you these 4. So holder point is where your weapon is on a rack, or your back, or your waist. So the blue arrow located here, here, points to where the weapon will be pointing to the floor. So if I want the blade to be pointing to the floor, I rotate it like that. So now this will be pointing to the floor, the head part. The parry point is where the enemies will try to parry you with their weapon when they're holding it. the preview. So the preview is what the weapon looks like in the book. So because right now it's flat, it will be pointing a picture like that. So you want to rotate it, let's say 90 degrees. I didn't mean to do that. 90 degrees. There we go. So that's what the preview will now look like on your weapon in the book. Make sure that it's with the model too. So I recommend you move the preview so it's not inside the weapon. Just like that. Okay. And then whoosh is where you want the whoosh sounds to be. So I want it on the head of my weapon. Alright. So next thing to do is to go into your item definition. Give your item an ID. So I will give it video axe. The renderers are done automatically. However, if you have particles on your weapon, they cannot be under renderers. Okay. So, next thing you may want to add, it's not necessary but it's great to have, is a fly ref. So fly reference shows what rotation your weapon will go in when you use telekinesis or when you throw the weapon. So it is an empty. You do not need to give it a certain area to be. Well, yes, you do. You don't need to have any components on it. So you want to set the area. The blue arrow points in the direction of where you want it to be thrown. So the fly reference I will put right there. Okay. So the next thing is to give your axe colliders. So you want to create another empty, name it colliders. This will be the parent of your group. Okay, so I recommend you put colliders just underneath the models. However, you do not want to put it in the model's parent because the model's parent right now is half its size, meaning the colliders will be also. Okay, so you create an empty under colliders, and I want to name it handle 1. Okay, so the handle 1 collider I want to have as a capsule collider right here. Okay, so now that I have the capsule collider, I can edit its collider and shape it to how I please. So let me do that quickly. Now, please note, colliders can in fact collide with each other in terms of they can be in the same space and it won't cause issues. I'll show you what I mean by that when I get to the blade part of the weapon. So if I want to copy this, I Control C, Control V, drag it up to the weapon, make sure it has perfect rotations. Excellent. So I want to do that again. And then finally, I want to do it for the spike at the bottom here, which I will be adding a damager to. I do not have access to my Oculus at the moment, so I will not be testing these weapons in game, but I know for certain that this weapon will work in game. I'm just showing you how to make it, then you can test it for yourself. If it does not work, make sure to look at my written guide while also looking at my troubleshooting guide to make sure I A, haven't missed anything, or B, just to give more clarification. Okay, so that's the handle colliders. Now I want to add colliders for this part here and this part here. So I'll add another column, empty, under colliders, and I will rename it to head 1. So for the head, I want to add box colliders. Box colliders are sometimes hard to see how far they are in a weapon when you're in this view. I'll show you what I mean in a second. Okay, so this is my box collider. I want to make it center. So the way I'd make sure that it fits the weapon is to click this square on the axes. This makes everything flat, making it easier to make it as pinpoint as possible. Now, as I said before, these can overlap with each other, and that will be fine. Okay, so right now, this is what my head looks like. It's pretty messy, but that'll work. Now, I am missing one thing at the moment, and that is physic materials. So, once I'm finished with this collider here, I will show you what I mean. So I will copy this here, set it to global, just so I can drag it as normal as I like. I rotate it correctly. Now, I'm not going to do pinpoint colliders here because it's a waste of time, but I will just make a pretty simple collider like that. So, physics materials are important. It adds blood to enemies when you hit them with it, etc. It's quite important. So, for the handle, it looks like it's wood. So with the wood, you want to set the physics material to wood hard. Wood makes it so they can pierce it. Wood hard makes it so they can't. Same with the second one. You can make a separate collider for this part here to make it metal if you wish, but I won't. And then finally, this part here, I will make bigger. I'll set that to metal. And then the bottom part here, because it's used to pierce, I will use the physics collider, physics material, blade dagger. Okay, so now you have the blade. Because I know all of these will be blade physics material, I can highlight them all and set the physics material as I please, which will be blade axe. So now that the physics material is set, colliders are done. So now what you want to do is you want to go into the video axe area and you want to create collider groups. So collider groups depend on how many damages you think there are going to be. So in my weapon, for example, I will have one for the blade, one for the back of the blade, one for the handle, and one for the stabby part. So I will have 4 collider groups. Now, you need to rename them. These are important. So, I want to do the blade, the back blade, the handle, and the pommel. I want to make sure the blade can imbue magic, the back blade can imbue magic, and the pommel. It's because they're metal. Okay, so now I know that the handle goes under the handle part. So you drag it onto the colliders. Handle 2 is the same. And I believe handle 2 is the same too. Just to make sure, yeah. And then 3 is pommel. So handle 3 is the pommel part. You can rename the colliders as you please. I've just been quite lazy with it. There we go. Now the head. So blade 1 will go here. Same here. And same there. And then the back blade is head 1, 3. Okay. So colliders groups are now done. Make sure you keep these names in mind for my next, for the one after handles. So next I will create an empty on my video axe called Parry. This gives the enemies, this gives the enemies an idea of what your weapon is, how big it is, and allow them to parry effectively. If you do not include this, they cannot parry you, therefore making life easy. So you want to make a parry definition. I want to make it so it's the size of the blade, but not too big. And then I want to rotate it for the handle. Now, just because there's a slight growth here for the blade, I will add another parry point that will fit the blade. There we go. So now I have 2 parry points. Perfect. Just to make sure they're in line. Yes. Next is the handle definition. Now, I've heard a lot of people create an empty called handle, by the way, and add a handle definition. I've heard a lot of people say you need an interactable ID. You do not. This is defined in the JSON. It's not necessary. It will not cause any problems if you are missing it. This is fine. The way I do it right now will work for you. Okay, so the handle looks like this. It looks pretty weird. I want to rotate it so it fits the weapon perfectly. So you can see the little small purple there. So for allowed orientations, you want to change this size to 4. Element 0, you do not want to change. Leave that blank. Element 1, 2, and 3, you want to set as default to none for all of them. Now, element 1, you want to set the z-axis to 180. For element 2, you want to set the y-axis to 180. And then for element 3, you want to set the y and z axis to 180. Now, you define the axis length. The axis length shows how far they can slide up and down the handle. So I will set it to 0.4. Which looks good enough. So where the point in the middle here, that's where the handle can go. and you can set the default grab axis ratio depending on where you want to hold the weapon first. You can set multiple handles, however, you have to define those in the JSON also, which I will show in a bit. Okay, handle is done. That's it. You can change the default touch radius if you wish. You might also want to set it to have a reach. So for instance, I have a plugin which makes it so you can see the reach, by the way. The reach, you want to make the size of the weapon. So I'll make it reach tip of the axe. That'll do. So that's my range. Okay. Handle's done. You can also set multiple handles, as I said. Now the next is the most confusing part, I'd say. The damager definitions. So this damager, as I said, will have 4 definitions for the axe. So the first one, create an empty and call it blunt. Now these refer to the damager / collide groups here. So for blunt, it's the handle. So I add a damager definition. I give the collider group name to handle direction all 0 0, and you can place that anywhere you wish. Next, slash. So slash will reference to this axe here. For axes, this is specific for axes only in terms of how you do this. Okay, so for slash, you want to add a damager definition, and you just for starters, you want to make sure you give the collider group name blade. I believe that's what it's called. Yep. And then you want to set it to 1 1 at first, so it looks huge. So now you want to fit it to the middle of the blade. Now you want to resize, so the length has to be the size of the blade. So right here it looks like it's 0.35. Then the depth you want to change to how far you want them to ingrain into the blade. So for instance here it'll be 0.1, 0.2, 0.2. That's slash, that's it. That's how you do an axe. Now I want to create a /2. Renaming these is in fact important. I want to flip it by 180 degrees. I'll do exactly the same here. I'm going to change it to back blade. Did I capitalize that? Okay. So capitalization is also important, by the way. Okay. Now, you may think that'd be it. I also forgot to mention, so let me add that in a sec. Okay, so that's that. I want to set the direction of these to forward. This makes it so the middle part here on the side of the blade will not bug out and make weird things. Okay, now I want to add a pierce definition. So damager definition, I want to drag that down for the pommel of the blade. So I named this pommel. Set the direction for pierce to always be forward. Of course, I want to set it to 1 1 again. This time it's a little bit odd. So a pierce definition for an axe. Make sure that the length is on the bottom of the pierce bit. You rotate it so the depth goes through it. Now you want to set the depth first. So for instance, it looks like that'll do 0.1. Then I set this length to 0. There's no length needed here. This is set up as a Pierce definition. Okay, so now you drag the handle into the main handles. Now it doesn't look like I'm missing anything. You can also add multiple whooshes as long as you drag it under the whoosh points. Okay, now you're done. This is your weapon. Now, the next thing you need to do is you need to extract this weapon. Now, go into the Assets folder, create new folder, and you want to rename it to your weapon. Like so. So now there's Assets Video Axe. Here is your weapon folder. So you want to get the Video Axe parent, and you want to drag it down. Oh yeah, I forgot to rename that. You can edit this later by simply unpacking the prefab, deleting the old version, and editing it, and then dragging it down again. So now you'll come to this screen. So let me just drag this up for better views. This is your axe, and you should have asset bundle in the corner here. This is important here. So if you want the weapon to work, you click on asset bundle, click on none, new. Nothing will happen here. You can't type. It's a bug. So you click off, click on the item again, click new. Now you can type. So I will name this Video Axe. Capitalization doesn't matter here, as it automatically puts it into lowercase letters. Now this is assigned to an asset bundle. So now I will go to Blade and Sorcery up at the top, and I will build asset bundles. Now, this will take a while. So while I do this, I will be going into my Blade and Sorcery folder. And in the meantime, I will create a new weapon. So I will name this folder Video Axe. Because there's processing stuff in the background, it will take a while. So now I have my folder. I get a manifest file from any mod. I will edit it via Notepad++ or any other editing program. I will rename it to what my mod is. I will change the description, whatever. My author, mod version 1.0, game version 6.0. So you save that. That's your manifest file. So now you need an item. So you go into streaming assets, default, items. You scroll all the way down to something similar to your weapon. So for instance here, it's my item weapon axe. You copy it, go back to your streaming assets folder, find your folder, and paste. Now you want to rename it to your weapon. Okay. So now you edit this weapon, item JSON. You have your item JSON here. So now you edit all the necessary components like the item ID, which is very important, your text to what you want the weapon to say when you sort of highlight it. Change the description to what it says in the book. Change the author to yourself. Storage category. So if you want it in blades, axes, blunt, exotics, etc. Now, the prefab name is very important. So, as seen here, which is a good example, I have my prefab, which is video axe, and I have my bundle, which is called a video axe. Therefore, my prefab name will be @ the prefab bundle here. So it's video axe, no capitals here, by the way. So that's the name of my asset bundle. And then you want to do colon, the name of your prefab. So it will be video axe.prefab. That's the prefab name. Now, you want to go into the damages. So right here, as you can see, you have the interactables, which is the handles. So if you wanted to add another handle, I know there isn't two here, but you copy it, you add a comma, then you enter paste. And then you rename the transform name to what you named it in Unity. Okay, it's the same with the whooshes. And you want to change this depending on how heavy the weapon is. So if you have a heavy axe, you just name this heavy. However, it is light. So while we wait for Unity to do its thing, if you guys have any problems with my item JSON, or have any problems with this guide, see any issues, feel free to look up my troubleshooting guide. I have lots of guides that will help out anyone who's stuck. There's a written guide located in Modding How To. I've got quite a lot of resources for everyone to use, so use them as freely as you want. Unity usually takes a while for me, as I have roughly about 30 assets, which suck, but eventually get done. Okay. Allow me to come into the item once it's done. Okay, it's done. So now I find these here, which are the names, the damager definitions. So right now I have transform name slash, which is done for me, and blunt, which is done for me. Now, the sequence and order is weird. So for the PS always has to be on top. So you want to rename the damager IDs to what the damagers you have set. So you can either create your own, which I do an example of in my video JSON guide, or additionally, you go into the default folder, damages, and here are your base damages. You don't even need to go into these, you can just copy the names because they're default. Okay. And then finally I have /2. Alright. Damages is done. Handle is done. Perfect. This is done. So slot here. 1, I believe, if you set this to 1, it means that it can only be held on your waist. 2, I believe, means... No, wait. I think 1 is you can't hold it anywhere. 2 is on your waist. 3 is on your waist and your back. 4 is on your back. I don't know 5, 6, but I know 7 is quiver only. Okay. This is done. So the video JSON is done. Save that. Now, you go back into Unity. You go locate the folder called Asset Bundles. Now you should see your assets here. A lot of my assets are missing for some reason, but I won't get into that. So I have the video axe here. I want to right click it, show in Explorer. Now I have the bundle, I want to copy it, I want to paste it. This is your mod. It's done. The axe is now complete. It will now work in game as intended, and feel free to follow any of my other guides if you want to explore with it further. I hope this guide helps. I will be making videos for swords and blunt weapons, and then a video for mixed, so a weapon that has a pierce damager, a slash damager, and also an axe type damager set. I hope you guys enjoy making modded weapons, and happy modding. Goodbye.